I'm a Tonechaser. That thing you hear in your head that you just can't quite get.
How is everybody? Good morning. Good morning to y'all, Tonechasers. So, back in 1985, when I was working on Edward's authorized biography, obviously one of the most important interviews I wanted to do, I had to do, was with older brother Alex Van Halen. I was up at 5150 one day, and Alex stopped by, as he would normally do. Alex only really lived up the street off of Mulholland, and he would come by and hang out with Ed, and they would do whatever they did. He knew I'd been working on the biography. Edward maybe told him, or maybe I had mentioned it to him in passing, or maybe he just figured it out himself that I was always up there taping Edward and that kind of thing. And so I thought, this is a perfect time. I'm going to ask him, Alex, can we sit down, man? Can I talk to you about the book? There's so much I want to know about you and Edward. And he was neither surprised nor bothered by the request and said, hey man, let's sit down and do it right now. So if I was thinking clearly on any given day when I knew I'd be up at 5150, I'd stash my cassette player in my car. Luckily, I had done just that. Ran out to the car, got out the cassette player, hooked it up, and Alex and I walked outside 5150 and found a couple lounge chairs. And so for more than 4.5 hours, man, we sat and we talked, and he was amazing. He was forthcoming and open and honest and passionate, and it was amazing. On the cassettes, I have it marked September 9th, 1985. I can't imagine we sat there for 4.5 hours on one day. So I probably came back the next day or maybe the day after. But in any event, the interview was over 4 hours. So I'm going to be putting this up in segments, and I think it's pretty remarkable. I would venture to say at that time, it's certainly the lengthiest and most in-depth interview Alex had ever done. And while I can't be 100% positive, I don't know that Alex has ever done an interview that sort of insightful and probing since. So I was lucky, man. I caught him on a good day. He wanted to talk. And I thought it was now time to share it with all of you guys. Just in advance of the 3rd edition of Tonechaser coming out. Plug. So put in your pre-orders at tonechaserbook.com. So I will get out of the way. And so please check it out. September 9th, 1985, Alex Van Halen. See you guys.
What was life like in Nijmegen? That's where you were born?
Nijmegen. No, I was born, Ed and I were both born in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam.
And then we moved to Nijmegen.
Nijmegen. Where in Amsterdam?
I guess the major hospital. I don't know. Maybe the sewer. The earliest recollection I have of Ed was that he didn't like to get his hair cut. No, I'm serious. I think he was about 3 years old before he ever had his first haircut. He used to cry and just get ticked off, like kids do. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was. I didn't like getting haircuts either, but I figured, what the heck, I may as well get one because I'm going to be a businessman by the time I was 6.
You had to figure that out.
Right. The earliest memories I have, really, as far as musically, is that our father was into music, and you couldn't help but be touched by it. I'd watch him practice, I'd watch him play. He'd bring home his records, his pictures, and the whole ball of wax.
He actually played. He was on records and.
Oh yeah.
As a solo artist or as part of a band?
As part of a band. He was the first chair.
He was?
Yeah, he was #1 clarinet player. And he played at prestigious places such as the Concertgebouw. And
could you spell that?
It's called, it's the #1 place in Holland to play me. It's comparable to, say, for a rock band to play at the Gardens. You know what I mean? It's, or Carnegie Hall, rather. Well, basically, Ed and I were surrounded by music. Our mother, who is in heaven, although she didn't play that well, was very interested in music, and she always told us, go out and practice, and she bought us a piano, which they could barely afford.
Really?
And I have that piano now.
Do you really?
I forgot to show you.
Oh.
It's at the pad.
I'd love to take a picture of that, maybe.
Okay. It's an old Rippin, upright.
What kind?
Rippin.
Rippin.
R-I-P-P-E-N. And that's how we started.
Do you have an idea of how much they paid for it?
No. Probably something they couldn't afford. Seriously, it was, you know, pianos were expensive at that time, and they still are.
Your mom played a little piano, right?
Yes. And she was the one, if anyone really cracked the whip, it was Ed and my mother. She was the one who got the teacher to come over and force us to practice a half an hour a day. Now, when you're a kid, a half an hour is a long time. You know, I'd rather be out there shooting, you know, cowboys and Indians.
So you both took piano lessons?
Yep. And I don't know. The only way I can explain it is basically that the whole thing was in our blood. You're surrounded by music. You can't help but absorb.
Did Ed
the
seem to
influence.
show any kind of natural ability on it?
I think, yeah, much more than me. I was much more of a clinical, or whatever you call it. I could read. If you didn't have the piece of music in front of me, I wouldn't know. I'd be lost. I wouldn't know what to play. Ed did it more by listening and remembering and just touching. It just that kind of routine. Quite honestly, I was never into playing piano. I didn't like the instrument. I'll never forget, though, that my mom would always say, someday you'll thank us for this. And I think that's true, because it taught Ed and I, whether we admit it or not, it taught us structure, it taught us harmony, it taught us different chords, and just a general all-over knowing more about music than the average kid who just plays a guitar and knows that he wants to make this sound like Tommy Iommi. You know what I mean? So, it was
So
good.
you think a lot of, well, some of Ed's musical style was actually set that early?
Well, I'm not a psychiatrist and I'm a psychoanalyst or anything, but I think anything that you learn has some kind of influence on what you do. Because it wasn't until later, when we got into rock and roll, if you want to call it that, when Ed started to play guitar and I played drums, Ed would sit there and listen for hours on end to Eric Clapton. That was basically Clapton, I think. And you can't help but sit there, and when you try to emulate these people, it kind of gets into your fingers.
So, I mean, what can you actually describe what your house was like? I mean, was it a big house? Was it a small house?
What, in Holland? It was a tenement. It was a flat,
It
they
was?
called it. It was just row upon row of houses. They all looked the same. We had one of the larger ones because we had a basement. But that's basically it. It was just apartments. That's all it was.
Did you and Edward share a room, a bedroom?
I'm trying to remember now. Where in the hell did I sleep? You wake up in the morning with a hangover when you're 6 years old. You know you're in trouble. Yeah, Ed and I shared a bedroom. I remember. And the door had to remain open because both of us were scared shitless of the dark.
Really? Yeah.
It was a time when we were the only ones, our family was the only one with a TV set
Really?
on the block, on that particular tenement. It was called Roosmarijnstraat. It was
Can you
59 Roosmarijnstraat.
Can you spell it?
Oh, shit.
Come on, that one you can spell.
R-O-S-E-M-Y, Rosenmarijn. Something like that. It was. I remember what it was called. It was 59 Roosmarijnstraat.
Start Street.
Yeah. We were the only ones with a TV on the block, so when they had the limited TV hours, which was usually from about 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock, all the kids on the block would come over to the house, and we'd sit there and we'd watch Peepo the Clown. Oh man, when I think back about that.
Edward would sit there and watch TV too?
Oh yeah, we'd sit there and, like I said, we were the only ones on the block that had a TV. Down the street, in the next tenement, there was a friend of ours, and his father was the only one who had a car and a telephone.
Wow. You guys didn't have a telephone?
Oh no. You kidding? No, no telephone. He had a Volkswagen, and he would take us out for a ride once in a while, and it was the greatest thing.
So you were how old? Well, how old were you when you moved to Nijmegen?
Nijmegen?
Nijmegen.
Probably about 2 or 3. I don't remember much of Amsterdam. I do remember living by the water and watching them do the pile driver stuff to make a new dike, because a lot of Netherlands is reclaimed land. What they do is they'll build a dike, and then they take the water that's in there and pump it out, and well, then you have reclaimed land.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure that Holland's probably grown about 50% since the last time I was there.
So Edward was born in
Amsterdam, same hospital, same place.
Do you know the name of the hospiel?
No. I'll find out.
Good.
I will find out for you.
I also, at some point, I would love to sit down and talk with your parents, So maybe we could go over there and spend like a family evening. I think if Ed would be there, it'd be a little too.
No, if you're gonna do some stuff real young, I'll tell you, there's some pictures of Ed and I. And Ed sitting there with a drum on him and a drumstick up his nose.
Oh wow!
And this was before he ever had his first haircut in his life.
Wow, that'd be great. Great. So your dad was out playing. I mean, did you ever go and watch your dad play, or did you ever come along and watch?
It wasn't until later. It wasn't until I was about 10 years old. He was gone a lot of the time because he was on tour, and that's how he made his living. He enjoyed playing music, and he would do matinees and reviews and the rest of the stuff. And I kind of got used to not seeing him all the time.
Really?
When he came home, boy, I swear the fear of God would be struck onto you. You did something bad, whap!
Was he the disciplinarian?
No, my mother was.
Really?
My dad was the outgoing kind. He was the one who always had the philosophical little things to say, the sense of humor. At first, it didn't really strike me that way because, again, when you're a kid 5 or 6 years old, you don't really pay attention to that kind of thing. It wasn't until later, when I was about 15 or 16, that when I started working with my dad and spent a lot of time with it, he wasn't really my dad, he was my friend. We were together and we would play some of the lousiest shitholes.
Really?
And, well, we got to know one another and it was great.
Did Edward ever play with your dad?
Yeah, a couple of times, but basically no.
Was he on guitar?
No, bass. I'll never forget.
Really?
Ed and I and my dad did a gig one time where the bass player kind of fucked up. He was gone. He didn't show up for the gig. So my dad asked Ed, hey, why don't you come and play? And Ed says, I don't know these songs. And I told Ed, look, just don't worry about it. You come, bring the amp, and we'll sit there and we'll play, and I'll yell out the chord changes to you. And if you can't figure out what chords you're trying to figure, to noodle in, because believe me, these guys were playing all of the strange chords. I told them, if you can't figure out what chord that you're supposed to be playing in, just go chromatic. Just play in the cracks. Nobody will know.
How did it sound?
It was fun.
Was it?
Yeah, it was fun. Didn't sound very good, but I'll tell you, 90% of the bass players we had anyway were shit, so what the hell?
Do you remember where this was?
I remember the place, and I remember what it looked like. It was a wedding of some kind.
Oh, really?
We were I think we were outside. But we played so many of them, it's hard to really pinpoint.
Did you play a lot with your dad? That was the only time Edward ever played, though?
Yeah.
Did Edward enjoy it? Did he come back saying, wow, that's great, I want to play some more or anything? Or
I don't think it was very stimulating as far as musically, because what you're doing is you're doing cover tunes, and it was definitely not conducive to any kind of originality. But like I keep going back to this, it was just in our blood. We wanted to make music. I mean, to force Ed to go into a suit at a time when you're really used to just wearing blue jeans, and to stand there, we were 13, 14 years old, and to play for adults when you're scared shitless because you're wondering what they're going to think of you, and you got my dad sitting there telling you what to do. It's kind of an uncomfortable situation. And also, this was at a time when we didn't drink any beer, so we was a mite thirsty.
so how long did Edward actually play piano?
About 16 years.
Really?
Yeah.
He didn't actually have lessons for 16 years.
On and off, yes.
Really?
When we came on the boat to America, my dad would play in the boat, in the band that was playing on the boat.
Really?
So that we could pay for our passage. And we were flat broke when we came over here.
So
we had no money.
When did you leave?
62.
62. Do you remember the month?
I remember arriving here, I think, March of 62.
And you had to take a boat?
Yeah.
I mean, a plane would have been...
Oh, Jesus Christ, that's so exorbitant. I mean, I didn't... No way. No way we could afford that.
What kind of a boat was it?
It was called the... The Amsterdam. No, that was the big one. It was the... There were two major ships that Dutch ship line had, and we took the smaller one. All I remember is getting seasick on Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Yeah, I remember that for the rest of the days that I'll ever live.
I mean, I know I'm getting a little clinical here. Do you remember the day that you left? Do you remember what day it was? What day of the week?
I still have film of it, but...
You do?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take?
7 days. And Ed and I would play piano. We were kind of like a little not a comedy act, but okay. Here's my dad playing on stage with the band, making some money so we could pay for our passage, and then it was kind of a novelty to have two kids playing piano. So Ed would play and I would play, and
kind of like the Marx Brothers or something.
Well, no, not so much that. It was just the novelty of having a little kid who can barely touch the ground while he's sitting on the seat playing a piano.
So 62, so Ed was...
I think Ed was 6, I was 8. Now that you're writing a book, anyway, I may as well tell you, we've always lied about our ages.
I know, and that's one thing I really wanted to
I'm
put
only
in
18.
Right. Yeah. Did you have any feelings, or ever have any feelings about coming to America? Did you have any idea what it was about, or what America represented?
Basically, it was my mom who wanted to do it. My father had a steady job. He was in the Air Force, playing the Air Force band, making records, guaranteed income, guaranteed retirement, etc. We had a nice apartment, like I said, and 2 floors. My God, that's a lot.
So this is like the Dutch Air Force band?
Uh-huh. And it was my mom who had a sister who lived in California. And she just said, let's go to California. You can buy oranges for a penny apiece. So that's what we did. Well, my dad, I gotta tell you, my father has got some guts, man. He chucked everything. He just said, okay, fine. We'll wipe the slate clean, and we go to America.
He believed that much in your mom and what she felt was here for them that he just...
Yeah, I think, basically. Because when we did come here, he found no work as a musician. He couldn't speak the language. Again, like I said, we were broke, and the last few pennies that we did have, we had to pay for the extra cartage on the piano.
He took the piano?
Yeah.
And you told me that your dad actually had $25 in his pocket.
Yeah, well, it was 10 after the overcharge
Really?
of the piano. And on top of that, the piano was damaged. And so we had to pay for that. And it was kind of strange, to see my father not making music. Again, like I said, at that time it was very difficult to get into the union. You had to be a union member to play certain gigs. If they catch you as a non-union person playing a union gig, they would give you crap, and they would sit there and they would fine you, and vice versa. If you're a union person playing a non-union gig, same thing. So my father basically started out cleaning toilets.
Over here?
Yeah.
In what, restaurants or?
He used to do one had a gig at, not a gig, a job as cleanup for the Masonic Temple. He had a job at a machine shop, and he had a job at a hospital cleaning pots and pans, all at the same time.
Really?
3 jobs. That guy worked probably about, I'd like to say 25 hours a day because there ain't enough, but he worked about 20 hours a day for the minimum wage, which at that time was about $1.40. And for a man who was so talented to do that, I think really showed me his character. The guy had guts, man. He went out for it, and he was going to work it for his family, and well, I guess he somehow instilled it in us. Go for it and do it. And I'm really proud of the guy. It's just I'm a little bit saddened that he never really achieved what he could have as far as music, because he's a damn good musician.
Do you think that if your dad, in your dad's heart, I mean, I know this is a hypothetical question, hard to answer. Do you think that your dad, misses or wishes he could have still been back in Europe and playing his music? And
No, because there is no opportunity there.
it wasn't, he had gone?
There is no opportunity there. He would have stayed in the Air Force band, and that's it.
When he was doing his records, was he playing as part of the Air Force band?
Some of them. He's been in so many bands and has done so many live recordings that I can't even keep track of them.
Really? Do you know any of the names of the bands at all?
Yeah, Jos Kleber.
Can you spell it? I'm sorry, Alex.
I know how to spell it. I just know how to say it. You'll have to ask my dad that.
Okay.
But he played with a lot of different styles of music.
Did your dad write? Did he write music?
Not that I know of. He was. I remember being a kid, about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, sitting in the basement while my dad was rehearsing, and he would sit there and practice for hours on end, just hitting one note, so he can get the right feel, the right timbre, the right sound.
Really?
Maybe I'm nitpicking, or maybe I'm being just downright dirty. But no, there are a lot of people who have very good technique and just sit there, but there's no sound. My dad knew how to get a sound out of that little tubular piece of wood that was unbelievable. He would sit there for minutes, just one note, one breath, but for minutes. Total rehearsal time, probably about 8 hours.
Really? Was your dad recognized as a standout player in
Yes.
as a
Yeah. That's why they hated him so much. See,
Did more of his joy come from playing with the orchestras outside the Air Force?
I think his joy came mainly out of playing something he felt happy with. In the Air Force, I don't think he was so happy with it. I mean, he told me stories that just were funny. It was a way to make a living. And he told me that there was a friend of his who who stood next to him. They would have to stand in formation, in the,
Oh, God.
what do you call it, at attention. And he told me, I'll never forget this one. The Queen of Holland was coming to make her entrance. Well, I guess apparently her plane was late, or whatever. But they're standing out in the freezing cold, and a friend of his, who was an oboe player, had to take a leak. Well, you're standing there in full dress uniform, and you can't just sit there and say, "Excuse me, fellas, I have to go to the bathroom." So he took his oboe and stuck his wiener in
You
it.
swear.
And the guy started to take a leak. And my dad looked at him and said, "Well, how are you going to play this thing now?" Because all the piss had gone through the reeds.
That's amazing.
Ask him about that. I'm serious. That's a true
incredible. God.
story. Now, they used to stand out there at attention for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours at a time in the
Right.
freezing cold.
Right.
And it's not something I would prefer to do.
Just backtracking, just for a moment. Did you live in that one house at 59 Stat the whole time that you lived
Yeah.
there? You never moved anywhere else?
Right.
Did your mom work?
No.
She stayed at home and took care of the
She
kids?
took care of the kids. She took care of all the business and the rest of the stuff. And she took care of making sure that we would practice our piano.
Mm-hmm.
I used to hate that.
I mean, Ed never would willingly walk the piano.
Oh, no.
No.
No, because at that time it was very regimented. I mean, I'm going to have to jump back and forth here from
No, that's
different years.
fine. Go, please.
But when Ed and I were kind of seriously approaching the piano as an instrument for creative purposes, we had a teacher. His name was Stanley Kovaitis.
Kovaitis.
He was a white Russian,
Really?
which has nothing to do with race. It's just that they call him.
Right.
He was a white Russian.
Right, I understand.
And we used to drive down to Long Beach, which was about an hour drive.
Oh, this is when you're not here already. Oh,
Right. And well, after a while, we could not afford the piano lessons. So Stanley said, "Listen, why don't you guys just come down to my house in Long Beach, and I'll teach you for free."
Oh.
So we would go down there and go for free.
Wow.
And the guy he was a very amazing, he was a good piano player.
Do you know how to spell his name, Alex?
Kovaitis.
Kul, K-U-L.
It's K-A-L
V-I-T.
V-I-A-T-E-S, I think.
Right.
Kovaitis. I don't think that's the proper spelling. My father would probably know what it was.
Do you think he did that because he sensed that maybe you and Edward...
Oh yeah, he did. He
knew.
definitely wanted to make us concert pianists. And Ed and I, at that time, were more interested in the Beatles and Dave Clark 5, Jan and Dean, you name it.
Really?
We were into rock and roll. I mean, we actually sat there and we would take pieces of cardboard and cut them out to make them look like guitars.
Did you really?
And play air guitar. I used to get those empty ice cream buckets from 31 Flavors and use them as drums.
You did.
Yeah.
At,
So
at what point in time did drums come into your life? I mean, did you realize that I really didn't want to be a piano player?
well,
or-
originally, you see, what happened was I was playing guitar. I was taking classical guitar lessons.
This is truth now, right?
Yeah. I told you, I'm telling you the truth.
No, I've heard these stories, and I just...
No, it's the truth. I remember the old guy. I don't remember his name, but he was an old guy, and he was trying to teach me how to play flamenco.
This is back in Europe still.
No, this is in America.
Okay.
America. And I had an innate sense. I just knew that I would not be able to do this, to perform on a thing with 6 strings. I just didn't have it, you know? My parents bought me a guitar, which was a Tesco Del Rey, with 4 pickups, mind you, 4
Really?
pickups. And they bought me a Silvertone amplifier, which was made by Sears, or at least marketed through Sears at the time. And I remember they spent about $250, which was a lot of money at that time. And I was playing the thing, and no matter what I tried, it just wasn't happening, man. Ed, at the same time, bought a drum set. And he had a paper route to pay for it. So
Really?
he had to make money. I mean, my parents weren't going to give me this thing for free because they couldn't afford it. So Ed got a paper route. But while he was gone on his paper route, I'd be sitting there banging away on the drums. I really liked the drums. I don't know what it was. I forget exactly how it happened, but eventually Ed and I switched. Ed played guitar, and I played drums. I could tell by what he was doing and how he was imitating and listening to different people and being able to play the same thing, that this guy knew what the hell he was doing.
You
And
could
he-
really
and he
tell?
had-
Even
yeah,
when you were kids, you could tell?
yeah, oh yeah. Oh, he was clean.
He was?
Oh yeah,
He was always
he was clean. We used to play a song called Foot Patter.
foot patter?
Foot Patter.
Foot powder.
Foot Patter.
Patter, like
Patter, right. Like
Okay,
patter.
Sorry. This is an original song?
No, this was he learned from a record, and he played it better than the people who were on the
Really?
record. I could hear it. I mean, there was just no argument, no doubt in my mind.
So how old are you and he when that switch happened?
About 11, 12.
You were 11 or 12?
Yeah, about 11 or 12. Yeah.
So it's like 10. 9,
Yeah.
10.
We used to sit there and play the elementary school gigs. You know, we'd finagle
Yeah.
ourselves into a job or something. Never for any pay, but still just to play.
Like little assemblies and things? Or...
Right. I'll never forget. We played a place called Jefferson Elementary School, which is where Ed went.
Jefferson Elementary
Yeah,
School.
I went to a different school,
What school did you go to?
Marshall Junior High. I was already in 7th grade.
Oh, so you went to elementary school back in Nijmegen.
In what? Nijmegen?
Nijmegen.
Yeah, up to 3rd grade.
And then what happened?
Moved to America.
Oh, I see. So where did you continue your elementary school here then?
Yeah, my elementary school was here from grade 3.5, if you want to call it that, to grade 6.
And what school was that?
McKinley.
McKinley.
McKinley Elementary School.
And everybody went to Jefferson.
No.
No. You played at
No,
Jefferson.
both. Okay, wait a minute.
Sorry.
Let me straighten this out.
Okay.
When we left Holland, I was two grades above Ed.
Right.
Ed was in 1st grade, I was
Right.
in 3rd.
Right.
And we ended up in the middle of the year. We both went to McKinley. McKinley Elementary School.
Got it.
After that, we moved, and then we went both to a place called Hamilton Elementary School. After that, we went to junior high school, which was, I went to Wilson, and of course Ed was still in elementary because he was
Right.
2 grades behind me, and I don't remember if he went to Wilson or not. But after that, I went to a place called Marshall Junior High because my parents moved again. And, well, it was an interesting school. Wilson was entirely white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I mean, there was maybe 1 or 2 black people there. Marshall was about 70% black.
Really?
And, you know, the funny thing is, I'm not a racist. I got along fine with those people.
You did?
So, I'm serious, man. We got, Ed and I always got along fine. You know, as a matter of fact, when we first moved here to this country,
Where did you move? What area did you move to?
this place called 486 Oakland Street
Oakland Street.
in Pasadena. And it was a duplex. Lousy place. The 4 of us had to sleep in the same bed.
Really?
Yeah. It's only 1 bed. I didn't want to sleep on the floor. But it was funny because, again, in Holland, first of all, there are no real, maybe now there are, but back then there were no black people. I'd never been,
Really?
I'd never met one before or whatever. Sounds funny the way I'm saying it.
No, it's
But-
just such an amazing concept.
When Ed and I went to school, the only barrier that we had was our language barrier. We couldn't speak the language.
You didn't speak any English when you came?
No,
You weren't taught any of that in school at all, or
No.
second language?
no. We knew, I think, 2 words. Yes and accident. Accident was the first word in the book that my mother had bought for us to
Really?
learn English. But it's hard to describe. Ed and I have always been different from the norm. Without even knowing any lingo, I became squad leader. I was the only one in the entire school to get one of those Rotary Awards for outstanding physical performance, etc. I like girls.
Did you?
Her name was Debbie.
That was the first one you met?
Yeah.
What was your last name? Do you remember?
Nope. I know where she lives. Or I did anyway. And she had an ugly brother, that's for sure. Greg was his name.
Greg. Did Edward like girls?
I don't know. I think Ed was a little bit more of a shy, introverted person. But the thing was, see, I was the extrovert, and I went after females. Ed was the introvert, but he was the cute one. All the girls were always going, "Oh, he's so cute! He's so cute!" And I'd be standing there going, "Jesus Christ, man, come over here! Come over here! What is this shit? He's so cute! Come on, I'll take you down to the pop stand." No, I'm serious. He was quite the ladies', well, at least the focus point of attention, because he was cute. Man, if at that age I would have had that looks.
Did he have that great smile of his back then?
Oh yeah, always. You know what it is about Ed, is that he's so honest.
He is.
He is so honest, and it shows. He's not a finagler.
Was he always like that?
Yeah.
He always said, "Mom, Dad, I want to do this, and I don't want to do this," and
yeah.
"Teacher, this is what I am, and what's what I'm not."
In a lot of ways, I think Ed has a lot stronger character than I do. He's never been one to mince words. I mean, when he's pissed off at somebody, he just goes out and says it.
Mm-hmm.
I try to sometimes be diplomatic about the whole thing, because I'm worried about the repercussions. You know, maybe later on down the line, this guy might be doing this and operate on your wife and sit there and remove an extra kidney which didn't exist in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was always, the girls went crazy for him.
We were going to touch also on that assembly that you guys had played at.
Oh, okay, that was just it was a gag. See, first of all, we had a band. Again, I got to keep saying this. It must be in our blood. Ed and I, between the two of us, have played practically every instrument that exists in this world.
Really?
Short from bagpipes. I'm serious. I've played violin, saxophone, clarinet, guitar, piano, drums, you name it. I've played it. Ed has played piano, guitar, drums, the whole ball of wax.
You played violin, right?
Yeah, both of us did at one point.
Really? You were both given lessons on violin too?
Yep.
Is this after piano?
This is during piano.
Really?
Yeah. Which really made it a pisser, because now you got a half an hour of violin to study and a half an hour of piano to study.
Did Ed seem to have any facility as a violin player?
At that time, no. No. He was a very, it may sound funny, but he had a charisma when he played piano. Ed and I went to what was called the Southern California Youth Festival, which was all the teachers had their star pupils come and perform, and I think there were about 5,000 of them. Maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe 3,000 or so kids from the Southern California area,
right,
who would compete. And you have a choice of, I think, maybe 3 or 4 different pieces of music that you can pick, and you perform them in front of a judge. Well, needless to say, out of all those kids, Ed took number 1.
Did he really?
Yes.
On the piano?
3 years in a row.
Did he really?
Yeah. I still have the trophies sitting somewhere at my parents' house. 3 years, and I took number 4. I was ticked off.
Wow. I mean, in hearing these other kids play and hearing Edward play, was it that? I mean,
to Ed, it's hard to describe. It just came so naturally to Ed. He didn't, everybody else would walk up there prim and proper, and they would put their piece of music down, and they would sit there and they would bow to the judges and so, and then they would perform their piece. And if you ask me, most of it, I'd say 90% of it, was played so coldly and unfeelingly, without any real music guts to it. It was just technique. When Ed walked up, he was just a little kid. And he'd be sitting there, he'd be smiling, no music, and he'd look at the judges, and they'd say, well, you're going to play? Oh, you want me to play now? Okay. And he would play. And, yeah, I still have some of that on film.
Wow.
When Ed won, yeah, it was great. He was great.
Huh. Did it mean anything to him winning, taking first place?
No.
That's what he told me. Didn't mean anything to
No. He just wanted to play.
Wow.
I'm sure it must have made the teacher, Stanley Kovitis, proud to see Edward sitting there on a grand piano on stage, at age whatever, 9 or 10, however. I'm sure it was a stripe on his or a hash mark on his shoulder, whatever. But to Ed, didn't mean shit.
Huh. When you first moved here, did Ed occupy his time doing anything else? I mean, with the other things that he did, did he read? Did he, was he a swimmer? Did he?
We were basically the typical rowdy kids.
You were?
Well, first there's a mountain up there. It's called Mount Wilson. Okay, we climbed up that mountain with no gear. We were into riding motorcycles or mini bikes at that time, go-karts, you name it. Sport for us was just fun. We'd get out, and as a matter of fact, Ed set the record for the 50-yard dash. He set the record for the 100-yard dash.
Where was this?
One was at an elementary school, the other one was at a high school. Ed was the quickest white boy on the team. I'm serious. No, I'm serious. The guy was quick. He could run like a motherfucker. And that's what I used to hate about him, because when we get in a fight, I sit there trying to catch him, and this guy's like a squirrel, man. I couldn't catch him for nothing. But when I did, he knew I did.
Did you guys used to fight?
Yeah.
Like brothers?
No more than the ordinary brothers.
What would the fights be over?
Well, I can remember one incident in particular. We were making some music. We had a band called the Sounds of Las Vegas. Don't ask me where we got the name. It was called the Sounds of Las Vegas. And we were playing, and I don't know, things just weren't really happening as far as what we were doing musically. We were about, let's say about 12 years old. I was 12, Ed was 10. And Ed had a picture of Cream, the band Cream.
Right.
And he had it sitting up there. And I was just trying to be testy with him, because I was really at wit's end with him for one reason or another. So I took one of those, what do you call it, X-Acto knives.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm going to cut Ginger Baker out of this picture because I want that picture of Ginger Baker. And Ed says, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. And all I wanted him to say was, okay, if you want it, you can have it, and then I wouldn't have done it. Well, so I cut the picture out, because he didn't say that. And he walked over with that same X-Acto knife, and he chopped holes all over my drum heads. Now, this is at a time when I couldn't afford an extra drum head, and he sat there and he chopped up my instrument. So, well, I beat the shit out of him after that.
Did you normally win the fights when you caught him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you were a lot bigger. And
well, I'll tell you, I never really laid into him.
Yeah, I mean...
And he held his punches.
Yeah.
Neither one of us really wanted to hurt the other, so it wasn't like that.
So was the Sounds of Las Vegas the first little combo you two put together?
No, the first little combo we put together was called Broken Combs.
Broken Combs.
Yeah.
And how old were you guys?
I was in 6th grade, so I imagine I was about 11.
God. Is this when you played that assembly?
No, that was a different one. Okay, we were called the Broken Combs. I played tenor sax. Don Ferris played alto sax. Brian and Kevin, they're both brothers, Brian and Kevin Hill, one played drums and the other one played an M&E guitar, and Ed played piano.
Really?
And we had songs like Boogie Booger. We had songs. No, we started writing our own stuff.
Bro, there's original stuff you and Edward wrote?
Yeah. Ed and I wrote all this stuff. And we had one called Rumpus. And that was a great song.
And you guys actually performed this at this little 6th grade?
Oh, we dressed up in black slacks, white shirts with a blue turtleneck underneath it. because we wanted to look like a Dave Clark 5 kind of, you know. And we did some gigs, and it was funny.
Wow, that's great. I mean, what was it like? I mean, how would you and Ed actually sit down and write these tunes? What?
We just sat down and we played. I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you explain, you know?
Yeah, right. There were no lyrics to these songs, just kind of instrumental.
No,
songs?
it was all instrumental. And we had to keep Brian in the band because his cousin was the one who owned the drum set. And we had to keep Kevin in the band because Brian was his brother.
So Ed was playing guitar by this time, though?
No, he's playing piano.
I mean, but was he playing any guitar at all at home?
Not that I can remember. Ed basically picked it up he picked up the guitar after I started. I started playing guitar, and then he picked it up, and he was just, I don't know, from the very beginning I was very fascinated with the drums. I don't know what it is, what psychological or psychiatric reason. I liked the size of it, I liked the way it looked, I liked the way it sounded, and I liked the way that I was able to do it very simply without practicing.
Yeah. Give me a chronology of the bands that followed the Broken Combs.
Oh, God.
I know there was a few of them in there.
Okay, well, can you stop the tape for a second? I'm going to think about this while I get up there. Ed did play with somebody else.
There's nothing I was going to ask you. Did Ed actually ever play with different drummers?
Yeah.
There were a few times.
Yeah. In the early days, it was, it gets complicated. In the early days, okay, since I was in junior high, and Ed played it, I gotta show you the tape. I'll get them from my parents. Ed played in a band called The Henchmen.
The Henchmen.
I was supposed to be the drummer for it, but they wouldn't let me because he was in elementary and I was in junior high.
I see.
So I couldn't play. So Ed and, what was his name? Oh, shit.
Think of this one.
Ed will know his name.
Okay.
Real jerk. Then there was another band called Genesis.
Genesis.
This is way before the real Genesis came out.
But this is much later, though, isn't it? This is much later after
Yeah,
the
this
sound
is, yeah,
of Las
this is
Vegas.
again later. This is probably when I was about 15 or 16. Yeah, I must have been 16 because I was driving. We had a band together, and everything was working out fine. And then all of a sudden, some other jerk off was walking in and says, well, you know, I really can't have this thing happening with your brother playing drums. And so I said, well, okay, I'll step back if Ed wants to do this. So the guy was the one who wrote all the songs, and he was the drummer, and he wanted to do it. Jack something, I forget, but his name was Jack. That was a fucking prick.
This is The Henchmen?
No, this is a few years down the line. There are very few, like I said, there are very few times when Ed and I did not play together.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping around all over the place.
Okay.
I wish I could do it chronologically.
I'll try to go back and listen. You want to get a beer? Take
Yeah.
it back? What was it called?
The song was called Dear Diary.
And this is with
And-
Genesis?
No, yeah. But he wanted to change the name. Eventually the band became, after Ed left, the band became Snotty Scotty and the Hankies. Ever heard of that band?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah. See, Ed left because he couldn't take the shit anymore. And I couldn't. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and pick my nose? I told him, Ed, you're making a mistake. This guy's a fucking jerk. And what are you doing with these guys? And Ed just wanted to try it. And I got to admit, I felt a bit insulted
Really?
that Ed pulled that shit on me. But
Were you jealous?
no. I just knew that I could play better than the guy. And at that point in time, my main interest was being able to play the best as possible. I had my idols, you know, like Ian Pace, John Bonham,
Baker?
Ginger Baker. And this guy was playing like a fucking hacker. Hey, well, he was. And I was surprised that they would even tolerate that shit. Because even on top of the fact that the guy couldn't play, the band sounded like shit.
How many people in the band?
At that time, I think 5.
Ed
4 or
was playing
5.
guitar.
Yeah, Ed was playing
Drummer.
guitar. Jack somebody was playing bass. Ugliest motherfucker I ever seen. Jack somebody else was playing drums, who was the one who wrote the song. and I forget the other, if you want to call them musicians. I forget who else was in it.
Was it a keyboard player and a singer or something?
I don't remember if there was a keyboard player or not. All I know is I didn't like the situation, and well, finally convinced Ed, hey, come on, you want to make music? Let's make music. Fuck this garbage. These guys were a dead end, man. Snotty Scotty and the Hankies. Give me a break.
So do you think at that point in time it became a little more serious for you and Edward in terms of...
Yeah, well, we started playing together. I think one of the first bands that we put together, which was really serious, heavy-duty rehearsal and trying to do something musically, was a band named Bald.
Bald?
Yeah.
So this
B-A-U-L-D.
Oh my gosh.
Don't ask me where we came up with the name. I don't know what it means. It happened to be, I guess, a gym teacher or something at one of our schools. But that was the first thing. And we went through, I think, between that and the final version of Van Halen, we probably went through about 10 bass players, 7 attorneys, 5 accountants, a number of lead singers. But let's just say the lineup always changed. The only thing that was really constant was Ed and I.
What was the original lineup of it? Do you remember?
The original lineup was when it was called Bald. It was Ed and myself, and a guy named Frank Souza. And well, he was a decent player. He was not really a bass player, but anyway, he had a place to rehearse. So,
so what age group are we talking now?
We're talking about 16.
16. So Ed's like 14.
Yeah. We had one bass player. His name was Kevin Ford. Who was just a little bit before Souza.
You can get a hold of me on my Instagram page anytime, steve.rosen.guitar.pics, or you can check me out on Facebook. I think if you type in Steve Rosen Tonechaser, you'll find me there. So, okay, bye.